This week on London Real, we have the strength coach and former pro strongman, Elliott Hulse.
I experienced that my body is my mind. The more rigid and square you are, the more you're manipulated by data and ideas rather than intuition and feeling. You know what your problem is, Elliott? You got an answer for everything. Well, guess what, Mom and Dad? I made it because I got an answer for everything. But now the evolution has been, I don't have an answer for everything. Decide on your core values first, and then build a business that you could fit around it. With regard to psychedelics, so it's the first time I'm saying it on TV, I've used ayahuasca. If you think that you've resolved your shadow issues, you've got shadow issues.
London Real presents Elliott Hulse. The body is the mind.
If where you are and what you have and what you do right now resonates deeply with you, then you're successful.
London Real Academy. Build the best you.
When I go in and look at a person or a business, I want to hear him talk about his dreams.
Am I living in alignment to the way I want to be living? And there's a feeling you get if you're not.
A community of action-oriented people that will keep you accountable to your goals. Sign up now for a free 30-day trial. London Real, sponsored by Bulletproof. What you're about to see is actually 2 years in the making. And that is when I finally got to sit down with Mr. Elliott Hulse, the pro strongman and creator of Strength Camp. I was just honored to have Elliott in the studio, and we talked about everything. We covered everything I've been dreaming to ask him, including his first on-camera confession of his experience with psychedelics. We talked about active meditation. He got up and meditated all around the studio. It was just incredible. And what I really wanted to ask Elliott about was his hiatus he took from YouTube. And that was in September of 2014. He just took a break at the top of his game and just stopped making videos for 8 months. And, you know, as a fellow YouTuber, it was just really important that I found out why he did that. And he gave me an amazing answer and was just super honest about where he thought he had gone too far. And he was blinded by the light, perhaps of his own success. And it was just a real honor and a pure London Real episode this is, with Elliott talking real and honest about everything. So sit back and relax, strap in. It's just an amazing time. And I just know you're gonna be even closer to the man that inspired us so many times on so many YouTube videos in so many ways. And I just hope I can contribute more to the occurrence and the phenomenon that is Elliott Hulse. So there you go. I know you're going to enjoy this episode. If you're watching this, it's most likely that you're doing it on the London Real Academy. And while all full episodes are free to watch if you just log in with your social media, there's a special group of people which are the founding 500 members, and that's our tribe. And it's a group of people all around the world that are busy making themselves better, building the best version of themselves. And we all keep each other accountable every day, and we make sure we take action to make our futures better. And so that's what the Academy is all about. It also includes lots of amazing content like the success secrets in this episode, which you can only watch if you're a Founding 500 member. We have the live episode, so you could have watched me live with Elliott in the studio there. We have bonus content. We have footage from my day with Dan Pena at the Ritz. We've got meetups here in London where we meet back at the studio every single week. You have access to me and just to an amazing group of people. So I encourage you, you can sign up right now. You can be in within 30 seconds and see everything that I'm talking about. It's really incredible. I never thought we could actually create what we managed to create in 3 months, and it's only getting stronger and better. So take a few minutes right now or watch the whole Elliott episode and then click on Join the Tribe. You can do it for 30 days risk-free, complete money-back guarantee. If you're not absolutely 120% satisfied, then you can just opt out, no problem. But give us 30 days, and I guarantee it will change your life, and you'll never want to leave us again. So check that out. That's the Academy, and lots of love to everyone there, and lots of love to Mr. Elliott Hulse. Now I will leave you with me and him in London Real Studios, talking real. London Real Set Design by Timothy Olton. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Elliott Hulse, who is a strength coach and owner of the world-renowned Strength Camp Gym in St. Petersburg, Florida. Your fitness coaching and personal development YouTube channels have over 1 million subscribers who tune in for education and inspiration to become a stronger version of themselves and empower others. Elliott, welcome to London Real.
Thank you for having me, Brian. It's great.
It's an honor to have you here. People have been asking you for years, and so I'm just glad it finally happened.
Yeah.
You just landed in London 24 hours ago, and I always like to ask people that come here, especially from America, I just wonder what your impressions are of this city. I think every city has an energy. I was just wondering what you feel when you're here, and even when you were here, you know, in St. Petersburg last couple months, when you think, I'm going to London, I'm just wondering, what does it mean to you?
So I decided to watch a few documentaries on Netflix. We watched one called Engleland, I believe, and it talked about the transition of kings to different kingdoms that built up to where we happen to be right now, which is England, and the Normans, how they came in, and the Anglo-Saxons. So it was really fascinating to get that history, which I watched a couple months ago. I landed here, and essentially it just reminds me of New York City. I grew up in New York City, so it reminds me a lot of New York City, just the amount of people and the buildings and the buses and the cars going by. The Uber driver asked me, like, what's the big difference? What's the one thing that you've noticed so far in 24 hours of being here? And I've got my children with me. And the very first question they had about something that was odd was inside the tour bus. It said, mind your head. Yeah. My daughter's like, what does that actually mean? How do you mind your head? And I was like, well, it means watch your head. And that's what we do back home. We watch our heads. But then me and the Uber driver continue to speak about it. It really makes more sense to be mindful of your head, because you can never really watch your head. So it's probably much more proper or correct here.
Yeah, it's fascinating how that language plays out. You know, Tarantino said it in Pulp Fiction, like in Europe they got the same things we got in America. It's just a little different. And so here, like in the tube, you'll see way out. They don't use exit, and there's all these little kind of
just little strange different things, you know.
But it all traces back to the history of this place. And so, like you said, this has had such a tumultuous history, whether it was World War II or World War I, or even all of the Anglo-Saxon conquering the Tower of London. You know, the Normans used to come up that river and wreak havoc on it. And so, like, I've been here 13 years, and I'm obviously an American. I have a British passport as well, so I'm a dual citizen. But even to this day, I see things about the British that I notice that now I understand them more as I understand the history. And you know, yesterday was the 10th anniversary of the bombings in the tube, where we kind of had our, you know, kind of our 9/11, you know, our getting attacked. And I remember what I noticed the most about this town was the next day, everybody got up and went back to work. And I was just like, this is interesting. Like, we didn't react, and there wasn't a lot of complaining. It was like back to work. And I just thought, like in 1940, when they were getting bombed by Germany over and over again, it was like you get back to work. You know,
keep calm.
Yeah, keep calm and carry on.
Keep calm and carry on, baby.
It's funny. It's funny. So those are good observations. Really good. I'm curious if you can contrast London to where you're from, St. Petersburg, or where your gym is now. For an Englishman here who's never been to Florida, how would you describe where you live, you know, the Strength Camp Gym, if you had to?
Well, I'll contrast Florida with London because I've got a funny story. When I got here yesterday, I got to tell you the truth, I was a little disappointed. You know, we showed up and we ended up in a neighborhood where we have our loft and whatnot. But, you know, coming from where there's blue water and palm trees and sand, and you look in the water and you can see all the fish swimming, and it's just paradise. And we do a lot of staycations because I have 4 children, so our vacations are like at the Don Cesar Hotel and on the beaches. So I've been building up this idea for my children and in my own head that we're gonna go on vacation. I really just didn't kind of like switch it from we're going to a city, we're not actually going on a staycation like we do in Florida. When I got here, I was like, where's the nice stuff, like the beach and it was kind of unconscious. And then it took me a moment to like switch and realize like, wait a second, I'm in a city again. So it took a moment there to realize that like the vacation is taking advantage of all the history that the city has as opposed to chilling on the beach.
Yeah, there are some, like any city, we got, you know, nice neighborhoods and kind of ugly stuff too. So what about like the weather and the contrast and even the history down there? I mean, you're down there near where Cuba is and where, you know, South America isn't that far. And like I'm from San Diego, but I don't know what Florida is really like. I mean, how would you describe Florida or the South to someone from Britain or even from Germany?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Okay, all right. Answer as much as it as you want.
Yeah. Well, my parents are from Belize,
Right.
which is right across the Gulf.
Right.
And so when they decided to retire from New York City, they wanted to go back to Belize, but obviously they didn't want to leave the whole family, so they wanted the next best thing. And so they started looking in Florida, and specifically along the Gulf Coast. Okay. So it was kind of like a home away from home for them, obviously with like you know, American amenities as well.
Okay. So that was kind of returning home to them.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then we followed, you know, I wanted something different for my family, so we decided to move down there.
Okay. Now I've been to Miami, but they say Miami's not Florida, and I lived in New York, and New York is definitely not America. So St. Petersburg is probably a good representation of Florida?
No.
No.
That's
okay.
why it's a loaded question, because you got like Southern Alabama, Florida.
Okay.
You know, which is Southern Alabama.
Okay.
And then you got Miami. So like, it just depends. I mean, then we got the swamp, like right in the middle there too. Right. You know, there was a documentary about football players in this part of the state that like they were just pulling the fastest football players out of this part of the swamp. And it was because they have a history of catching rabbits to eat. So like the kids and this is how poor it was. The kids and the parents, they'd go out and they'd hunt rabbits with their hands. So they'd run and catch them, bring them home, and then cook them, and they eat it up. And it was like, so these kids were like super fast and agile because for generations they're catching rabbits to eat. So you got that. You got Miami. You got Southern Alabama. St. Petersburg is somewhere in the middle in that it's a small city that's just starting to build up now. You know, they said that when I got there about 10 years ago, they said that the mascot bird is the crane of St. Petersburg because there's cranes everywhere. Right?
Okay.
Like, it was a joke.
So, all right. So it's on the up. It's
yeah,
building,
it's on the
building.
up. Mm-hmm. The thing is that it's beautiful. So if you want to be in paradise, we've got the most beautiful beaches in all of Florida for sure. St. Petersburg has Fort DeSoto, which was ranked the best beach in America like 5 years in a row.
Okay. Yeah. So you're in paradise.
Pretty much.
Okay. And would you ever move? Is there any other place you'd move in America, or is that's it? That's home?
Not a chance.
Okay. Even when you're sweating 100 degrees, you know, in your non-air conditioned gym doing the workouts, it's home.
I appreciate the sweat though too. I mean, remember my parents are from Belize, so I mean, and they grew up in a time and a place where, like, for example, my dad didn't wear shoes.
Right. Okay.
He just like when he came here and had to wear shoes, it was kind of a burden. It was like, well, I gotta put on shoes now.
Right.
Kind of sucks, but you deal with it. So the sweat was like, I grew up in New York. We didn't have AC in our house. We didn't have AC in our cars because my parents knew what it was like to be in sweltering weather all the time. So when I got down here and it was sweltering weather, it was just kind of like, well, I'm at home.
Right.
It kind of fits.
I try to describe people like New York in August. I mean, it's hard to describe like how hot it is if you don't have AC.
Yeah.
Like, it's you know. I remember I used to spend a couple summers in August when I first got to New York City, and I was working on Wall Street, but I hadn't made any money yet. So all the guys that did were out in the Hamptons, and I was like walking around this town, and it gets really vacant. And if you don't have AC, it's just this. I guess it's very Caribbean.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, I kind of appreciate that. I like that. When my shirt's not soaking wet at the end of a workout, I'm a little worried.
Right.
So we did a bodyweight workout out in the park this morning, and like no sweat. I'm like, I did the same exact workout 4 days ago, and I was wringing my shirt out. So I was a little disappointed.
You mentioned your parents are from Belize.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up? I think you've said before, you know, you had dark skin and blue eyes, and you're going to school. There was like white kids, there were black kids, and you were trying to figure out identity to a certain extent. I guess we all were, but how was that different for you?
Well, I remember the first time actually being cognizant of the fact that, wait, I don't know what I am yet, and neither does anyone else. When a kid asked me, he said one day to me, I must have been maybe in like first grade, says, Elliott, what are you? And race was never really a conversation in my house because we're all mixed in Belize. You've got the natives that live there, but then of course the Europeans came and brought their African slaves, and then it was just a big orgy. And you know, a good majority of the people look kind of like me, you know, brown, maybe more brown, maybe with slightly different features, but very mixed in that way. And so I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do I find out? You know, he's like, do you know what you are? And I'm like, well, how do you find out? And so he tells me, look inside your pants and tell me what color your penis is.
Oh, really?
I guess this is what like a first grader would say. And I was like, I don't know, man. So I couldn't figure myself out in that way. Yeah, a little embarrassing now.
That's what a first grade boy would say,
he
right?
was like, is it pink? I was like, wow, no. So I'm not pink.
So did you have to assume an identity later on in like high school, or be I'm this, or was it a topic that you?
I think I carried that question with me for a long time. I remember being like in 6th or 7th grade and going to the library, and this is when I really got into reading books on philosophy, because I picked up a book by Rollo May called Man's Search for Himself. Okay. That's what the title was. And because I was searching, like, you know, what are you? I think actually that might have been the name. Who are you really? Or what are you really? Something like that. And from that point on, I got introduced to the expansive world of philosophy and quantum physics, and you know, this whole idea that even religion started answering a lot of questions for me. I got involved with Alan Watts and Eastern philosophy and religion, and you know, it sort of transcended the flesh, and I found a home there. I found more of a home in being human and having a human experience, or being spiritual and having a human experience, rather than, you know, identity in, you know, what I look like, what social class I came from, or who I was identified with. You know, even things that people allow to identify themselves in regard to achievements and stuff like that. I transcended that all pretty quickly because I was exposed to these ideas, you know, due to my questioning so early on.
That's a good thing, right? To get away from a lot of these superficial ways to identify ourselves.
Well, it was soothing,
Yeah.
soothing to my soul. You know,
Right.
Good or bad, you know, it's neither here nor there. But I did find it a resourceful and very consoling idea to share with many friends and young people, and ultimately the people that watch my videos, because in a way, we're still all looking for our identity. You know, you might know that you're British, you might know that you're Haitian, but who am I, though? You know, amongst that, who am I beyond my social class? And it's a universal question. In fact, it's like the oldest question. You know.
Yeah, that, and to connect. I mean, I feel it so much now. Everyone has this urge to connect, and so do I. You could argue that's why I'm doing this. You know, is my need to express and connect. You know? But that's a different interview. I was outside waiting for you before you came up, and I was actually playing around with a little bit of your active meditation, and I was thinking that's probably the most anti-British thing I could possibly be doing.
Yes, that's why I can't wait to have everybody doing it here.
Right?
You guys are gonna be so uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's funny. I have this theory, like as you go higher up the latitudes, you know, people just get a little more repressed. You know, and you kind of see it with the British, you see it with the Japanese to a certain extent, and there's the same people that when they have a few drinks, they do the crazy stuff. You know, they go really bonkers, and I always think that the closer you are to the equator, the closer you are to maybe just being in tune with your emotions and expressing them more easily. I don't know if that's true.
Well, Alexander Lowen, who is one of the people I read a lot of his books, he mentions the very same thing. He was a psychologist and psychoanalyst, and he was also an MD, pretty smart dude. And he observed clinically, obviously, that the higher you go up the socioeconomic ladder, the more neurotic the individual becomes. And you know, the neurosis happens in the body. So very tense, very tight-lipped, not moving too much, you know. I got in the Uber with an African guy. He's from Nigeria. He's been here about 6 years. And right away, I could feel his energy. He's talking loud, he's using his hands, he's very expressive. And I get in the cab and like right away I'm jiving with him because I'm like, this guy is fully out. Everything is on display, you know, and you could tell just by the sound of his voice that he's giving it to you, as opposed to being calculated and held back and stifled, which, you know, most of us happen to be.
Yeah, and especially here in Britain, I think we have, like you said, the latitude, but then we have this like socioeconomic hangover, I think, from probably the Industrial Revolution, where like all the wealth started happening in here, and like everything was happening in like the 1800s, and it built this new money in this class. And I think a lot of Brits, the way we dress and everything, I think we hold a lot of that tension and repressed feelings.
Well, you know,
I think
it's interesting though, because then when a bomb goes off, people who aren't fully in touch with their animal, fully in touch with their gut and their heart, go to work again the next day.
Right.
So you're much more easily manipulated when you're not fully embodied. You're just a Pavlov, you're just a dog, you're easily tethered and manipulated. So I mean, for civilizations to run as tightly as they do, and the tighter the civilization, the tighter the individual.
Right.
The looser the person, the looser the society, you mentioned like the Caribbean or close to the equator, these are loose people and they're shaking their bodies and talking loud, and the looser the civilization. So, you know, if we shake our butts a little bit here more, maybe when bombs go off, we'll stay home, be scared like we should be.
I never thought about an analogy. I went to school with a Cuban guy, and he just reminded me of him. He was from Tampa, funny enough.
Yep.
And yeah, he used to remind us all that you know, we're up in Boston, and there was a little more to life than just studying, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you always said that strength and conditioning were kind of one of your go-tos. You know, it's something that came natural to you in playing football in high school. But yet you also went really early on into the spiritual piece, and I know you read Osho, and that kind of got you into that active meditation. And I was just wondering, I mean, that seems different to me. You know, a lot of guys when they relate to something physical they're good at, they stick with it a lot of times. And I was just wondering if you ever think back and wonder why you kind of went that way with it, or decided to incorporate both.
Well, I didn't choose to incorporate both. I experienced that my body is my mind. I experienced that the more free and embodied I am down here, the more clever, the quicker, the more sharp, the more intelligent I am up here. I mean, there's been enough studies. I mean, how many studies we need to know to have to tell us that exercise is good for the brain. You think better when you exercise, when you breathe. You know, so that has been my experience. The healthier I am physically, the healthier I am in my mind. And it's as old as yoga. You know, if you look at the philosophies of spirituality in the East, they don't exclude the body. You've got Qigong, you got Tai Chi, you got all the martial arts, you got yoga. They recognize that if we're going to get our minds right, if we're going to be fully available mentally and spiritually, then we had better be fully engaged and experiencing what's happening in here, in our body.
Well, I used to train martial arts for a long time, and I finally realized I was training jiu-jitsu and Thai boxing, and I realized there's nowhere else as kind of a mature male in his late 20s where I got to express myself physically. It was like, it really wasn't art for me, because I couldn't dance, or and it wasn't allowed in society to be aggressive. And so when I was doing this, I could yell and punch and kick, and every now and then I would realize, wait a second, I'm doing these carnal things that I'm just repressed to now. You know, I just went and trained today, and I did like this leg workout, and I've been watching some of your videos lately, and I'm like, I didn't scream, I didn't shake around, I didn't do anything cathartic. I just pumped some iron in a quiet kind of way, and then went home and took a shower, and I feel like I missed something there.
Yeah, you missed that energetic release. You missed that full experience of doing the thing, rather than, you see, when we go to the gym and we have a goal in mind and we go through the motions robotically, it robs us of the experience of the actual workout. I mean, think about going to the gym just for the workout, not for the goal. Not so that you could put a check next to the reps and sets that you did, but so that you can really get engaged with what your body wants to express. You said you want to express yourself.
Yeah.
Well, there's no better way. They say that more people have grown enlightened through dance than any other medium. You know, so we're excited about all the new plants that are helping us open up. But did you know that you can have the same experience by dancing ecstatically?
No. And most people wouldn't believe you if
Right.
you said that dance could get them on another spiritual level. So we kind of rob ourselves of that. Is that the kind of Western way, or is that the mind?
Civilized way.
Civilized
man.
way. Okay. So
The way that we can keep you keeping you go to work.
Right. Right. So that's a way, kind of a control method, the mind.
Yeah. Well, right. The body's the mind, you know. Tight bodies, tight mind, and the more rigid and square you are, the more you're manipulated by data and ideas rather than intuition and feeling.
Right. When you say the body is mind, you also, when you see someone's body, you can immediately determine a lot of things about their mind. And if you want to make changes to their mind, you can go straight to the body. Or could you just tell me more about what you mean when you say the body is the mind?
Well, I've got the backing of the 4,000-year-old practice of martial arts and Chinese medicine and yoga and whatnot. So I'm not making this up. But if you want a westernized view on it, a lot of the work done by Wilhelm Reich, particularly to answer your question on characterology or character structure, he did a fascinating job. You know, of course, maybe not up to everyone's standard, but it's fascinating. And there's a lot of correlations between what he describes as a physical posture or the physical holding within a human being and the psychosis, you know, whether it be, you know, you're neurotic or he had several different categories, including oral, masochist, neurotic, schizoid. Those were the 4 character structures. And man, it kind of lines up when I meet someone or I look at them. Their posture can immediately relate to the various character traits of, say, a schizoid or an oral. You know, their bodies take on this particular form, and then when you line it up, it's like, wow, there it is.
Right. And it's so.
But it's not a hard and fast science. You know, that's soft science.
Right.
But it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. And on the same sense, you can start working on someone's body in order to go to their mind, which is kind of against everything we've been taught really in the West, is if you have a mind problem, let's work on the mind, not on the body first.
We like to cut things up.
Right.
You know, that's how we started getting all of our technology, was Newtonian physics and cutting things up into little pieces and just looking at the pieces rather than the whole. You know, and it's almost like we almost ignore the whole because the whole is difficult to pin down.
Right.
You know, the pieces are easier to pin.
Do you think we've gone too far in science a bit? I was raised in a science household.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad went to Caltech. He was an electrical engineer. You know, I went on to MIT. And like in my house, like there wasn't a lot of dancing going on. There wasn't a lot of writing and English and history. Like for me, it was like, Dad does this and I'm going to do this. And so my head was like a science fair. That's what I was doing. And so it's only later in my life when I kind of made a spiritual connection in different ways. But yeah, is that just kind of a modern, you know, society evolving? Does it go to the mind first a lot of times with technology?
Osho is interesting because he talks about how a new mankind, a new humankind is evolving, where it's not a right or wrong. It's like saying yin is better than yang. All that yang, you know, forget that yang. It's no good. It's better than. That's the silliest saying that day is better than night. Summer's better than winter. We could do away with winter. There's the Western mind and there's the Eastern mind. And he's quick to point out the flaws in each. You know, he makes jokes about the Indians and how lazy they are. He's Indian, by the way, because they're so spiritual that they never get anything done. It takes them forever to do things because they think they've got another 40 lifetimes to get it done. It's no rush. So essentially everything is just spiritual. And then you've got the complete other end of the spectrum, which you described as your upbringing.
Right.
It's a matter of bringing them both into harmony with one another, because you can't have one without the other and not have imbalance. You can't have black without white, can't have up without down, can't have the Western mind without the Eastern mind. It's just beautiful that information now has allowed us to get in touch with one another. Of course, the Western mind has been imported to the East, but now we're getting the information through the internet and books and whatnot. You know, a lot of the gurus and stuff who, for example, also like the fact that Tibet was invaded by China and we had the Dalai Lama leave Tibet. I mean, like, that's a great thing. Now the West gets the gift of the Dalai Lama.
Right.
And so all these people come and teach.
So yeah, you stay away from that good and bad, and it's just elements of what's going on with life.
Yeah, we have leanings. I kind of like the pseudoscience, sort of airy-fairy, hippie side of things, because that's just my nature. You know, I never really did good in math, but I did really well in literature and writing and reading and art, you know, and movement. So I appreciate both, and it's just a matter of we need your leaning and we need my leaning so that we can all have a good time.
Right. You know, I was worried last year that this interview might never happen. And that's because of probably now your super famous, you know, blog post that said why I stopped making YouTube videos. 2007, 2014. Yeah. It read like an obituary. And me as a YouTuber, first thing I thought was, I'm so jealous, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, sometimes that interface and that distribution network can be its own nightmare to a certain extent. And you know, I think about it all the time, the amount of things that we publish. And for me, 4 years ago, I was like, I'm gonna do one every week. And I made this, I don't know who I promised that to, but I promised that, and I made sure it happened, like come hell or high water. And and it definitely changed me as a person, you know, and some good things about it and some not so good things about it. And the more I do and the more content, the more I get comfortable talking. But now maybe it's the more I get comfortable talking. And I know that you talked about some of the things that you were going through, where, you know, not everybody wants to talk to Yo Elliott when he's off camera, you know, and so all these things. I was wondering if you could just talk us a little bit about kind of what was going on with your mind there and what had happened like the previous 7 years, and maybe talk about what's happened since. If it's okay, I just wanted to quote a couple things you said from the blog, just for people that don't know.
Sure, yeah.
Just to kind of
it'll get me going.
Get them in perspective. But, you know, you said, quote, the seasons in my life were changing, but I was too attached to my success to let go and move with nature. I think this was talking kind of before you made the decision. And then you said, I've learned that if you are wise enough to honor the spontaneous, subconscious urgings of your heart and gut, that life will take you exactly where you need to be with very little friction. But if you deny or ignore the urgings of the heart and gut, life will meet tremendous resistance. None of this is done by logic. In fact, the logical mind has very little to do with the process. The only thing the head can do is get in the way. And that is exactly what happened to me. And you finished by saying, I began attracting tremendous negativity toward myself, my loved ones, and my videos. I was just wondering if you could take us back to where you were at September, what's that, about 10 months ago?
That was great, by the way.
Right?
Yeah, kudos to the guy that wrote that. That describes it completely.
I was wondering how you were going to respond to me quoting you, because it is a nice piece there.
Yeah, that's really good. That's it in a nutshell. I'm going to sound crazy or great, so depending on who's listening, but God told me to. My intuition, my body, the Tao, the way, the universe. I feel, I'm a feeler. You know, not as much a calculator, and that kind of gets me in trouble sometimes. That's why you need both. But the feeling was there, and I tried to be logical about what I was feeling, meaning like, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm at the top of my game. You don't stop, in a lot of the comments, you don't stop when you get to the top. And it was just a sense that I have to stop. And when I fought against it by continuing, I started getting injuries. When I say negativity, I was getting what I deserved because I should have stopped, and I was moving into speaking about things that I really probably had no business speaking about because I got to keep making videos, doing things for more excitement to get more people to watch my videos. You know, I know a lot of YouTubers who end up doing that. You know, because we're not like TV stars or movie stars that work for a season and then disappear, or make a movie and disappear. We're just like constantly pumping out content. We can't really hide and recover, you know, so.
And everything becomes game, right? I mean, the problem is that anything can become game. And well, you even started off commenting on strength and fitness, and then it became a separate channel for asking you questions about the non-related stuff, which was great. But then I always wonder, like, then when's the line? Do you bring the camera at home? Do your kids go on camera? And it's like when you're in this moment of, I got to create more content, it starts to get a little crazy.
Yeah, and you can start getting really like exuberant. You know, rest in peace, Greg Plitt. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was another fitness blogger, and man, he was like, I'm not a fan of too many people in my niche, you know, and it's for no other reason than I'm just not watching too many people, but he had my eye because he's a good-looking guy, he was entertaining, he was full of fire, and you know, he ended up pushing the envelope, and he made a video where he was letting a train chase him down, you know, and it didn't end well.
Wow.
And I kind of took that as a sign also. It's like, you know, how far are you going to take it? Like, this guy, you idolize this guy, you look up to him. Are you going to end up like him? Do you want to end up like him? And again, rest in peace. I saw that as one of the signs to look back up.
Right. For people that don't know, if you can just tell us from 07 to 14, like, your evolution. I mean, we were just talking in our war room over here, and you were talking about how YouTube was initially, you know, a business tool, and you were doing things that now, you know, internet marketers do today, like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember you saying that, you know, you're up in the loft at your gym, 100-degree weather. You're like actually coding websites before there were Squarespaces and all that stuff. You were, you know, doing SEO when no one was using that acronym, and like, you're really old school when it comes to that.
Yeah.
What was your journey to get where you were in 2014?
Well, real quickly, I moved down to Florida as a personal trainer. I worked at a gym, but I wanted my own business. I knew that right away, and I wanted a family, you know, and you know, the two kind of like, they challenge each other.
Yin and yang.
Right, you know. So I quit my job, and you don't get clients without any leads. And you need a lead source. When you leave the gym, you don't get leads anymore. That's your lead source. So I quit, and I knew right away. I was like, I got to get on the internet, because the internet is where people go to find personal trainers. So I dove really deep into internet marketing so that I could fill I didn't have a gym at the time, but I could fill my calendar with clients. And at the same time, when I discovered internet marketing to fill my client load, I realized that there was a whole world out there that I just stumbled upon. So as I trained my clients on my time off, I started creating products, creating email lists, and doing what the internet marketers taught me on the side, and then brought the two together.
Okay. And that became the whole piece, Strength Camp, the gym, all the videos. And
it's all coming together now.
Right.
Yeah.
So that happened. So September 2014, you'd obviously been thinking about that for most of the year, I guess, last year, or different pieces of it. What made you finally write that article? You obviously put a lot of thought into that. You were writing at a local library. You'd probably I'm sure you'd probably mention that to your family or to your friends, and then you finally I was like, I got to make this decision. Was there anything that made you finally just do it?
Yeah. I didn't like who I was becoming. I noticed my behaviors and the things that I was doing, and that's not who I wanted to be. And that's where I got really uncomfortable. You know, I made some mistakes with friends, and you know, saying things and doing things because I was inflated. You know, I think what happens is when you take on a particular role, and especially if it's this role where you're making videos every single day, it's not like, you know, the movie's over, good, go home, you know, we'll see it in the box office. It's one of these things where like all the time you're playing the character, that line gets a little blurry, and I'm thinking that I'm actually Yo Elliott, and everybody has questions for me, so I must know everything.
Right.
And if you know everything, then you could do whatever you want. And that's the story I started telling myself, and I was getting into things that I shouldn't have been for who I want to be. I'm not saying that I was getting into drugs or hurting people, but it's like, this is not who I want to be.
Right. You didn't like that guy you were becoming in the head.
So I had to create distance.
And you were making like 24 videos a week at some point, which is like, I think like you said, for your niche, you produce more videos than most anyone, and probably in most niches, really. Yeah. You know, even your typical YouTuber. What was it like when you went cold turkey? What was the response to that blog post? How was that first couple weeks for you?
I checked out completely, so I wasn't sure what the response was. I didn't care what the response was. And it's not that I don't care about my fans. It was, I need distance. So I took the opportunity to also move my office out of the gym. And just, I spent 8 months doing yoga. And essentially what one of my mentors said to me, he says, Elliott, you're being forced to repay all the winters that you ignored. In other words, like I was living in summer for 8 years. So ignoring the rhythm in my body, ignoring the rhythms of the natural rhythms, and not taking rest because I had something to prove. I had a lot of fear and anger to exercise, and I did it. And it was like, okay, good. Now you got to pay back with a lot of rest. So I rested. I didn't lift weights. I didn't go on and try to achieve some other big goal. I rested.
How did that feel? Was it frustrating at times? Did you want to get at the deadlift, or did you were like, I'm gonna make myself just do the yoga, or was it?
No, just thinking about picking up weights made me cringe. My body just rejected it. It was just so much of an overload that my body, and I'm an intuitor. So my body was saying it. It was like, I can't do it. I couldn't put logic to why I would go and lift weights again. Of course I do now again, but I was waiting. I said to myself, I'm gonna take as long as it takes for my body to be ready. When I say body, again, I mean mind, when it all lines up again, and it's gonna happen on its own.
Okay.
So 8 months was the...
And when did you know it was time to come back? Is that right?
Out of hibernation.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was just hibernation.
And did you know you would someday, or did you just not think about it? Was it just like, I'm going to be present and I know I need to do this?
Yeah, I didn't think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just present with it completely. My wife is my biggest fan. She's my partner. She's my best friend. And when I need the best advice, she gives it to me. And if I can get her blessing on something, I know it's right. And she would just say, Elliott, take your time. You know when you'll be ready. She sensed that I would have to go back to making videos. I'd want to go back, but even when I was like, I don't know if I ever will, she says, don't worry, take your time. You'll know when it's right, and just listen to your body. That's what she kept reminding me.
It's interesting how that can take 8 months, you know? It's interesting how the mind/body just takes that time, you know? You said maybe to take a few winters to decompress and figure out where
I don't think I'm done resting yet, though.
I believe you.
You know, what I've really had to learn was, how to go based on my rhythms. You know, and I know this. I make videos where I talk about it. You know, I know this, but acting it is another thing, and it requires just the detachment to say, the season's over. I'm going into this one, but ultimately summer comes back. So just chill out, let it go, because if you hold on too tight, then it might not come back if you like the guys that like end up using a lot of anabolic steroids. It's like, well, you're pumping so much in there that guess what? It might not come back if you don't stop. It's the same thing, you know, that whole yang go hard attitude. If you do it right, you'll get them. You'll get those seasons. But if you go too hard, adrenal fatigue sets in, and you end up with disease, and you know that's a whole nother battle in and of itself.
But like as young American men, like you were talking recently about some of the lessons you kind of learned. I mean, we're taught to go hard, and like I remember some of the things that you said, like do big things, you know, and you know, all of that stuff. You know, rest is for the weak. That's something you said on your kind of comeback video in April. I mean, but it's drilled into our head, isn't it? As kind of, you know, the American dream and American mindset. So you were just kind of realizing that there's a time for that, and there's a time to take a break. Okay.
Yeah, it's like having multiple summers in a row. It's not natural. Life goes based on rhythms. I mean, every day we have our anabolic phase of sleep and catabolic. As we get up in the morning, all the adrenaline comes. I mean, it happens on a daily basis, but it also happens on an annual basis. It happens in a lifetime basis. You have the springtime of your life. You know, and then you got the summer, like, you know, between the ages of maybe like 25 and like maybe 50, 55, like summer. Then it's fall, then you start like realizing that you gotta pack away a little bit for the winter and, you know, take better care of yourself. Then there's winter where it's like, well, now I'm laying cold, right?
Right.
You got to honor it. You have to honor it.
Right.
We want to fight, you know, that's why we got so much plastic surgery and Viagra. It's like, wait a second, you're in a brand new season, embrace the season. Love your gray hair. Man, it's a wonderful new season. Like when the trees turn, and one of the things I miss about New York is that the trees don't turn in Florida. Your hair changes. It's like, man, the beautiful trees, we celebrate the orange and the yellows that the season has to bring us, but then like you want to not honor the beauty that's arising in your body as you go into the fall, into the autumn. You know, honor it, man. It's beautiful.
Right, right. So you've been back a couple months now. How just if you observe yourself, like the last 8 or 10 weeks, how are you different now? Whether it comes to being on camera or your ideas.
I don't know it all, and I don't have an answer for everything. And I think it's been challenging because I really don't have an answer for everything. Where in the past, like I really did have an answer for everything. My parents even told me that.
Yeah, your parents always said, Elliott has an answer for everything.
You have an answer for everything.
But when you got on
YouTube,
YouTube, you really had an answer for everything.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and if I didn't have an answer, I'd make up an answer.
Right.
And I guess I got really good at doing that. Like I said, my parents told me that was my problem. You know what your problem is, Elliott? You got an answer for everything. Well, guess what, Mom and Dad? I made it because I got an answer for everything. But now the evolution has been, I don't have an answer for everything. Sometimes I just don't know.
Okay. And the 2015 Elliott is happy to acknowledge that.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it's so much more freeing.
Right.
Yeah.
I listened to a few podcasts just to kind of prep for this, but they were 2013 Elliott and 2014 Elliott, and one was like Brian Callen's show, and I know Brian, I interviewed him, it was great, and Art of Charm, I know Jordan, but it was different than your videos in the last couple months. It was you were almost taking the role as the guru and just being that guy, embellishing that guy, and yet recently in your videos you're more of the I'm just being me. It feels like to me, like I'm just being me, and this is the me now, and I kind of think this, and sometimes I think this, and this is kind of...
I started out that way.
Okay, right.
But then the mirror, you know, the world is your mirror, and if the mirror says, Elliott, you know everything, because wherever I go, I mean, Yo Elliott, my channel is Yo Elliott, which basically means, let me ask you something. Right. So the whole world is looking at me like, tell me something. So I had to get away from the mirror because like, I don't have anything to tell you anymore. And that space allowed me to see how attached I was to that image to now say, okay, good. I don't know everything. And in fact, guys, that's all right.
You said Jung says you can, the lights, you can be inflated by the lights.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so powerful,
Yep.
and then it'll change you.
Yeah, if you study some of the work of Robert Moore, who is a neo-Jungian, you know, meaning he comes from the lineage of Carl Jung, he talks about the balanced masculine being king, warrior, magician, lover. And in each one of those, you also have shadow or, well, more tied to what I'm saying now, you have immature versions of them. And the immature version of the warrior, you know, we think we're warriors a lot of times, but really we're the immature version, the not fully embodied version of the warrior, which is the hero. The difference between the two is that the hero thinks that he can do it by himself and that he doesn't need help. Man, there's no humility. There's, I can do it, I'm invincible, and I don't need any help. And that's really the driving force behind that type of attitude, at least it was for me, was fear and anger. You know, anger that I want to prove myself, and I think a lot of us are there. Yeah. When I say us, I mean younger guys, or where I was a few years ago. We're there. We're angry. We have something to prove. There's fear that you're not going to make it, that you're not going to be somebody, that you're not going to be able to take care of the people you love. And with that comes the arrogance, at least for me, came the arrogance of nothing's going to stop me. I could do anything. And God, the universe, my body, intuition wanted to teach me that, okay, now it's time to grow up and actually become a seasoned warrior. A truly seasoned warrior is cautious. I mean, it sounds crazy, right? Because a lot of my videos are like, don't throw caution to the wind. Throw caution to the wind and just go, because that's what I did, and that was my advice. But the seasoned warrior knows that he can't do everything and that he does need help. And that's the difference.
Right. And he needs rest sometimes too. Right. The hammock. You still have a hammock in your office?
Yeah, yeah.
But a few years ago, that hero, Elliott, wouldn't have ever considered the hammock. It was all about less sleep, more business, more leads, more videos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I relate to that young man with fear and anger, and I did that too. In my 20s, I was in New York City, and I was trying to go to Wall Street, and it was just about get the fucking money. And in my look back, I don't know why I was doing it, but I guess it was a lot of that anger and fear of not becoming the person everyone expected me to become.
Right.
But at the same time, as I look back, I was sabotaging myself the whole way. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and I look back and I'd be like, okay, you had all these things you're trying to do right, and then yet you were trying to, in your spare time, you were partying and being irresponsible, and then you're trying to be responsible. It's just like,
it's gonna catch up. It's bound to catch up and smack you right in the face.
right.
And we all get our unique slap. What the slap is for one person sometimes it's disease. I think I've read somewhere that at age 35 for most men is when diabetes and cancer and heart disease starts knocking on your door saying, you're screwing up here. Whether or not you take heed is a different story, but at that, I was 36. I'm 36 now, so I was 35. I was 35, basically nature knocked on my door and said, So I started going crazy in my head, which was like, okay, I gotta slow down, stop.
Right. Part of the new vision, is it kind of this idea to be in 100 communities around the world? Is it a bit more of a strength camp that's based on, these real physical meetups? I know you're here in London, you're going to Berlin, going to Stockholm. Was this kind of part of a newer vision, if you call that, or was that something that you always wanted to do?
I made that up when you asked me the question.
Oh, okay.
What is your vision? Well, let me see. I don't know.
I'm not saying you have a vision, but your body probably does have a vision that maybe you don't know about.
The way it's worked for me up until this point, and the way I see it moving forward, because it's kind of been good that way, is I set an intention for what I would like to have happen, but the logistics or the tangible expression of it is up to the universe. It's up to God. So for example, I remember setting the goal, writing down literally, and I do write my goals, I just don't get too attached to them, and I don't get attached to the numbers in them. I remember writing the goal that I'm gonna be standing in a stadium with thousands of people, motivating them to be the best versions of themselves. That was I saw myself, I visualized it, I felt it. I'm there and I'm doing this. Little did I know that the path would take me in front of a video camera where it's over 1 million. I'm not standing in a stadium. I'm standing in my gym with a video camera and 1 million people are gonna watch this. So if I would have been so rigid as to hold to the logistics and the tangible expression of my goal, then I wouldn't have gone on this incredible ride. So when I say a strength camp in 100 cities, really what I'm saying is I'd like to export the ideas that surround strength camp, which is you can become a stronger version of yourself and empower other people. However that's gonna happen, 100 cities, it's gonna be 1,000 cities, it's gonna be 10,000 cities, it's gonna be whatever God says it's gonna be. But I just aim in that direction, that we're exporting this.
Okay.
And then I get brilliant people around me that can make it happen.
Was this European tour something that last year you would have considered, or is this kind of an evolution?
No, I wouldn't have considered this at all.
Because it was all about the views and the videos at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a question I've been asking some people lately, and I want to ask you the same question. What is your relationship with money?
Mm-hmm.
I think we all have a weird dysfunctional relationship.
That's a great one, yeah.
And I was just wondering what yours is. Even if you had like one word that you would associate with money, because we're all yin and yang in here.
Mm-hmm.
We have businesses, but we have to be true to ourselves. I was wondering what yours is.
Mm-hmm. Man, when you say yin and yang, that's money. It's put in, get out. It's the natural rhythm. It's the systole, diastole. It's the way the world pulses. Economics is the pulse of the world because it's trade. And how do human beings interact? We interact with trade. We offer value in an exchange. You know, you can offer value and have an exchange just through a hug. That's an exchange. That's trade. Giving you some of my energy and love, you give me back some of your energy and love. Trade on the economic level is merely that. How much value can I create and keep the channel open to receive the value back? I think that's where a lot of people who want to create a lot of value, especially in this age where you can through the internet, also have hang-ups for receiving love back. And I think it comes from our experience even with our parents, you know. I give that love, but I don't deserve, because love is conditional. So we put up blocks against receiving the affluence that is due to us. You know, and when I say put up the block, I don't mean that there's just one thing you're going to move out the way. I mean setting up your mindset such that you will engage in the activities and behavior that will allow you to receive. And I don't think you deserve anything that you haven't offered. And if you do get something back without putting something in, it's going to catch up and bite you. I mean, look at like Enron and whatnot, you know, the evil rich people. Well, yeah, when you're hurting other people and you're hurting the planet, it's going to catch up and hurt you and everyone else. I mean, that's my only hang up with regard to money. If you're doing it in a way that hurts another individual or anyone, or you're destroying our planet, you're in the wrong.
Has your thoughts on your own business changed from say now to say exactly 1 year ago when you were slightly different? Is your approach to the acceleration necessary of your business, has that changed?
No. Again, for me, money has always been more of a sanitation thing. Like, can I take care of myself and my family? Like, I've never been too extravagant with, you know, buying Lamborghinis and whatnot. Like, it's just doesn't excite me. I'm not too excited about anything except getting other people excited about life, you know? So, you know, I have a nice house for my family. I can send my kids to good schools. We can buy really good food. We can go on nice vacations. So any other money that comes to me beyond that, I think Brian Tracy called it like what do you call it? I think a sanitation level. Like,
okay, it's one of your early audio tapes.
Yeah, I know that's the wrong word, but it doesn't matter. You know, there's a set level. Right. Anything beyond that is just a matter of how much value I'm putting out. So it's just a scorecard at that point. You know, am I creating tremendous value? Well, then the bank account will go up. If I keep providing the same value that I'm creating right now and not open up any other channels, I'll still be okay because I can do the things that I want to do with my family.
So it's never been a scorecard thing for you?
No.
Yeah, it feels that way. You have a new gym than you had a couple of years ago. And like you said, you got the house, you got things you need settled, and now you can really work on the vision or just communicating more and getting other people excited.
Yeah, that's really it, empowering. You know, the gift to me is seeing the transformation in the people that I serve. The gift to me are the stories about people who were really down and out, and one thing I said in a video I made 3 years ago dug them out of the ditch, and now their life is great. You know, that's the blessing that I receive.
You said the Hulse family doesn't value things, they value experiences. I know you brought the whole crew over here, which is quite a task for international travel. 4 kids, your wife. What's it like, family? Has that always been something that was super important for you? Was that your parents that instilled that? And how do you balance that, you know, work-life, family piece?
Well, balancing it, we had this conversation earlier, and I really took to a piece of advice that I heard from Dan Kennedy once, who was he's a business guy, read a lot of his books. He said, decide on your lifestyle. And when I hear that, I think core values, the things that matter most to me. Decide on your core values first. What do you value first? And then build a business that you could fit around it. And that's essentially what I did, you know, and that's why my children are here with me now. It's like we knew that we wanted to keep Colleen home, was my wife, and not working. That was a core value which we struggled hard for in the beginning. We knew the type of life that I wanted for my family and for myself, and so the business has to mold itself around that. the thing I say more than anything right now, my response is typically no. Like, it's just no, 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 no. Elliott, we'll double your revenue. I'm going to be away from my kids. No.
Right.
Yeah.
The Power of No. It's a great book.
Yeah. Oh,
James
wow.
Altucher.
No, it's such a blessing.
You have an auto response on your email that basically says no.
Yep.
It says like, we're really busy doing our stuff. Tim Ferriss has the same thing. So that's important for you. Keep an auto no, because you got priorities, like you said, core values, which are family.
Yeah, you got to create boundaries. And it's tough too, because when you're in a position where you're serving so many people, and my heart is with those I serve, if I don't create boundaries, then I won't have anything to give, because we can be drained by the very people that we love and want to serve. So the best thing for everyone is the boundaries that we can create for ourselves. Right. Even with your family, like your children and whatnot. I had to learn this one. I had to be reminded of this one very recently. It's like, you need Elliott days. Because I'm thinking like my days off, but I'm with my family, are good enough. But really, no, I need days by myself. So one day a week now, I call it E-Day. It's on Wednesdays. And I'm not just out of the gym, not just out of my office, but not at home and by myself. Because that boundary has to be there so that I can have enough energy and love for everyone in my life.
Did that come to you on that break in the hammock one day?
No, a good mentor,
okay.
Paul Check, shared that with me. I've
Okay.
been having some conversations with him about how to manage this. He and I are very similar in the type of businesses that we have. And he said, you need to take a day where you're away from everyone, even your family and your wife. So I get it.
Right. Speaking of your wife, you got her on camera to do a training session in the gym.
Yeah.
It feels like that probably wasn't an easy thing to do. I've tried to get my mom on camera. She won't sit in this chair for some reason. I got her on like a 1-minute video, but that was it. But it was really sweet. She's definitely compliments you in so many ways. You can see.
Yeah.
But what was that about? Was it hard to get her on camera, or was it just something you guys decided to do?
Well, I eased her into it, just like anything you want to get a woman to do. You can't just slam it on her.
Yeah.
You got to kind of like set the lighting and the scene and put some candles up.
And you find out later it was her plan anyways, right?
Right, yeah, when it's all said and done. So we began slowly. She started training with me on the time off. She wanted to begin exercising with weights, which she wasn't doing before. Which is a good lesson, listen to your trainer husband. She was doing a lot of high intensity cardio and cutting her calories and gaining weight. And I was like, well, you need to increase your calories and start lifting weights. She won't listen to me, because my mom says that the shoemaker's wife wears no shoes.
Right.
So who's gonna listen to me? So she took my advice and said, let me get you into the gym and start weight training a little bit. Now she's hard, rock solid, burning fat, and feeling better than ever before. So when it was time to turn the cameras back on, I was like, well, you're here, the camera's gonna be on. Are you okay with that? And she was like, all right, because she was already used to her workout, because otherwise I couldn't train her anymore. So I was like, well, you're gonna have to leave, I'm sorry. The cameras are gonna be on if you don't wanna be here, you gotta go. So the cameras were on, she was in the background for a few videos, and then, I started asking her questions, she would answer it. So, I mean, she has a sense of duty also, because she has a lot to offer. There's a lot that she can say that I think young women, and a lot of moms that watch my channel, a lot of women, even the girlfriends of a lot of the young men that watch my channel, they're curious, like, what is this guy's wife like? How does she deal with him, or what kind of challenges do they have? So she senses that it would be of value also for her to contribute.
I think as men, we crave that female energy too. We don't know we need it because we're kind of, again, taught this, big things, oh, guys, Hollywood movies. But I think we need that female energy in many forms, whether it's a strong female or a caring or a nurturing female. And maybe that's a nice thing to have on your channel too.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna be whoever I am, and she is a big part of me. So the camera's on and you see Elliott, you might happen to see his best friend and wife.
Children on camera, yes or no? Is that something you make a conscious decision on?
I think you could be paranoid, which I think is normal for a lot of parents. but I don't think it serves anybody. I started to realize that it wasn't serving my children when they were wondering why. You know, my daughter's getting older. She's in social media. She's like, well, Dad, why? Like, why wouldn't I be in your video? And she only needed to ask that once. And I was like, yes, why? Like, you're my children. So yeah, so you know, I use Snapchat and I'll use Instagram. We'll take pictures and stuff. Sometimes they'll appear in a video. Like my son happened to be out of school one day, and Colleen wanted to train. I was like, well, he's going to be in the video, so we made the video and he was there. So it was cute. People respond to it well, also. You know.
Yeah, I've got an 11-year-old, and she's been in there a few times, and so I've had this question with myself. But again, I was like, it's me. It's an extension of myself. You're seeing so much of me, and she's a part of me, and you could overthink it, but
I'm trying to protect them, but that's silly because they're gonna put their pictures out there anyway.
Yeah.
It's the world we live in now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of a natural progression. We were talking about Dorian Yates earlier.
Yeah.
I think that's how you first heard about us. So
Yep.
it's, I mean, who would have thought, you know, out of 200 guests that Dorian would have been the most watched?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's 6-time Mr. Olympia, so you know, he has a special heart in a men of a certain age group that grew up with him on their wall. Maybe you were one of them, or maybe it was guys a little bit older than you that would remember Dorian.
No, I remember him. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was Mr. Olympia when I was I was about 14 years old, just getting into weight training and stuff. So I get the magazines, and of course he was on there and as a champion and whatnot. So I have very vivid memories of Dorian Yates growing up.
Right, and he was interesting because he started talking about very spiritual things and some psychedelic things, and at the end of the episode, which like I was like, I can't believe this is happening, you know, and we had already done our whole ayahuasca ceremony in our early days here, and so now Dorian's like, oh yeah, I did ayahuasca in Brazil. We were like, that's the last thing I expected him to talk about today. Yeah, but I mean, he had lots of interesting perspectives, and of course, as you would expect, I asked him, you know, about steroids on the episode, and you know, he said something at the time which was really simple. He said, Brian, steroids are used in all sports. And it's a line that's rung true so many times. And at the time, Lance Armstrong was kind of coming out of the closet. And so all these things were happening. And then you were finding out that, you know, in a tiny, small frame guy, that was being used. And in MMA, sometimes it was being used. And I was wondering, do you think that as men, that steroids and supplements can be part of our journey, or part of a journey of a young man when he's trying to explore and test his boundaries? Do you think it's something, I don't know, that's natural to try, or that it's always going to be in certain sports? How is that yin and yang with you? What are your thoughts?
Man, it's powerful stuff.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonrealacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media, log in and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonrealacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there, and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.
Scared and angry, trying to prove themselves, getting into things that give them an opportunity to self-destruct, right? Because with the type of attitude I had, I was purely masochist. It didn't matter. No pain, no gain, really was a living, it's embodied in everything